Please note, the following story contains somewhat graphic and disturbing content. Viewer discretion is advised. Have you ever thought that the creators of Chuck E. Cheese were hiding something from us all? Or have you ever found something to be off about that place? Even the creepy, robotic mascots that danced on stage? I didn't, until I found out the truth about Chuck E. Cheese. It all began on the day that I first visited that place. I was around the age of 5 or 6, so I of course was pretty ecstatic to go. Seeing all those commercials of kids eating pizza and running around without a care in the world, playing the arcade games and on the play structures, made me almost get down on my hands and knees and beg my mom to take me. After finally getting her to break, she took me. I was the happiest kid in the whole world. My mom drove me over just a few hours before evening, so around 4:30 or so. I almost knocked over the woman at the door who gave you the little stamp on your hand, running ahead of my mom and bursting through the doors like a maniac child. Eventually, I was stamped and literally screeching as I ran around to all the games and playsets. After a bit, I stumbled over to one particular game. It was like a whack-a-mole, but with sharks. Right next to it was a door with a staff-only sign on it. One shark-whacking minute later, I had won the game. Before I could squeal in success and collect my tickets, my ears caught the sound of something very strange going on near the staff-only room. I could hear somebody say,
"Test number 15 on mutated rat results in angered behavior, such as throwing desk and scientist at the wall."
I then began to wonder what in the world they could be talking about. Maybe they were making a new game. Being so young, I had no idea at all what was actually going on in there. Being curious and feeling a bit interested, I pressed myself against the door and listened in as carefully as a 6-year-old could. I could hear them snapping at each other, things like,
"What are we going to do with this beast?"
and
"Get it away from me!"
A mumbled shout poured over whoever was in there, and replied with an even louder,
"We can't just kill the thing. It's a beast version of our mascot."
The talking stopped. I blinked for a second and pressed myself closer to the door. I quickly realized that this was a very big mistake, as the door opened from my weight against it. I slipped in, going from leaning on the door to falling flat on my face on the ground of the staff room. Immediately, footsteps trampled over to me, hands grabbing at my arms. I was out like a light in a few seconds, and I still don't know what the hell they did to do that. I woke up slowly, my eyes feeling heavy and my body feeling weak, in some kind of interrogation room. A tall man with a serious expression, wearing the cleanest white lab coat I had ever seen, began walking towards me out of the blue, almost like he knew I would be awake. His voice was deep, and it was scratchy from what I could tell when he began to speak.
You know, don't you? You know,"
he said. I was a 6-year-old half knocked out at Chuck E. Cheese, so I didn't know what they expected from me. I babbled for a second, letting my tongue function correctly. "What?" I replied dumbly, blinking hazily. He grabbed my arm, making the static feeling intensify somehow. He pulled me a bit, making me whine, though I quickly shut my toddler trap when a loud banging on the door echoed throughout the room. Naturally, me being so young and clueless, I screamed, thrashing around. The man let go of me, snapping at me to shut my mouth. Forgetting about almost everything, I thrashed around some more, slipping out of my chair. I kicked my legs, going into the corner of the room. I screamed again, banging my foot against something, making a loud metal clang against my foot. I twisted around and saw an air vent. I kicked it again out of scared, hot anger. With another loud scream and clang, the metal front popped off. Again, letting out a shriek when I heard the man stomping towards me out of the noise of clawing metal and banging, I scooted inside, spitting at him. I was scared half to death. I mean, what was I doing here? Where was my mom? He swiped at me for a moment, but quickly pulled his hand back. There was another loud bang, and the man stepped back. Using my tiny little hands, I grabbed the air vent's door and pulled it back, pressing it onto the opening just in time. As I did this, I heard a piercing hiss, followed by a shout from the stranger, and the loudest bang on the door. I crawled back, scooting further into the vent. I had to leave. Even being so young, I knew I was in trouble. I hastily turned around with a bit of struggle, slowly crawling down the vent. A loud manly scream echoed through the vent, followed by more. They were in unison with the sound of cracking and tearing, which I now know was the flesh and bone from the stranger. I got out as fast as I could. A small light was around the corner after a few minutes, and I stomped on it. The vent easily popped open. They really weren't paying attention to how tightly they were screwed on, were they? My feet stumbled as I climbed out, but were soon trampling to where I last saw my mom. She was still there, with a worried expression on her face. I ran up to her, hugging her tight. My eyes were now glazed with wet, hot tears. I just wanted to go home. "I want to go home," I whined and complained. My mother gave me a strange look, but put a finger on my cheek. "You must be tired, sweetheart," she cooed, picking me up. I clenched my small fist, holding tightly onto her shirt. We walked out of the building, me being oh so lovingly carried to the car. A distant whir of sirens in the distance became louder and louder, and police cars pulled into the large parking lot and skidded to a halt in front of the once amazing and fun Chuck E. Cheese. My mother almost ran to the car and quickly buckled me into my seat. A couple hours later, home and safe, I walked out of my room to get some water before bed, a habit of me trying to procrastinate so I didn't have to sleep. My mother was watching the news. The reporter was talking about some kind of mutated rat coming out of Chuck E. Cheese and disappearing down the alleyways. What happened to the real Chuck E. Cheese, God only knows. But I will never, and I repeat, never, go into any Chuck E. Cheese for as long as I live. What's up, everybody? This is the Lone Wolf here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the story of the real Chuck E. Cheese. If you did, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you're new to my channel. Hit that bell for notifications and join the Lone Wolf Pack. If anybody wishes to reach out to me regarding personal stories, recommendations, advice about the channel, or just to say hello, feel free to leave a comment on any of my videos or send me a direct message on any of my social media platforms. There will be links to my email, my Twitter, my Discord server, my Instagram, and my TikTok in the description. For anybody interested in the music, all of the tracks used in this video will be listed in the description below, along with links to the artists that created them. Until next time, stay spooky. And remember, the hunt begins when the moon is full. See you soon.